Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Spark of Genius Flesh and Blood production. We are back from a little hiatus, but nobody noticed that
Bit of
hiatus because
hibernation.
we we pre-recorded for 4 days straight to get 7 videos out for you guys while I was off on my 2 weeker, my 2 vacation. Oh, and Rob had a slight vacation too. But my point is, we were off by a bit here, but we will have fresh slate of content here. Obviously, Outsiders is not out yet, so when it is out, we will obviously have Outsiders content. Go figure. But for this one, we're just doing a bit of a game review. All these events were mainly casted for the most part, but we'll be doing a more in-depth kind of gameplay review about the kind of turn cycles, the matchup, to give you a bit more context about kind of things to look for and to learn from these games. And with that, I'm joined by my co-creator, co-commentator, co-caster, co-compatriot. And it's interesting because the two events we kind of had to choose from this past weekend here were the calling in Auckland. Obviously, that was the big one. The stream was a bit on the rough side, to be honest with you. I know they had a lot of things to deal with, like as far as the venue change and as far as like technical difficulties and the internet, but it was pretty rough. And I think between that and between the matchups we actually ended up seeing, it was not exactly the most exciting of matchups that we definitely have done some of those matchups on the channel kind of thing. Top eight was just a whole lot of Oldham. Some dash
Right.
ended up, taking it down, but like the dash that beats Oldham, like that dash. So
Right.
I think, we could have just watched the Lexi player kind of go through quarters and semis, but I think instead we're gonna turn here to the Arcane Gaming events. This is the Age Open, hosted in Southern California here. So this is the second one. So there was the first one. I feel like we've done one of their games before, but possibly not. I've definitely watched the first one. Very good group of players in California, especially Southern California. Got Chris Yali, who was second at Worlds. So definitely
Right.
among some other really great players there. So
Yeah.
this is that event, and that also happened this past weekend. So
Yeah.
we're
So
gonna
they were a
see
little bit
kind of.
eclipsed by the calling in Auckland. So it's kind of nice to bring
Mhm,
these guys a bit to the channel, watch some of their
mhm.
games, have some fun with
Yep.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, this was also casted by a group of locals down there. It was fairly well casted. I actually quite enjoyed the cast, to be honest with you. So I'm not trying to like take anything away from the casters here. This is more of an in-depth kind of review rather than a cast per se. So we're gonna start this off. Sure. So we have Zachary on the left here. We have Thomas on the right. We have Dromai versus Bravo. So we are starting off here with a sweeping blow. A little bit about the matchup, just to start off here, equipment wise, pretty regular sweep with Bravo. We have the Null One, a Nothos Crater Crown, and Tectonic. And then we have the regular crown. I think it's a ghostly touch, Mage
Yeah.
Masters,
Mage Masters as
and the
well.
flame scale.
Yeah. So this is the
Yeah.
version of Dromai that we've seen creep up, which is the more aggressive version, I believe.
Mhm.
The deck that is better suited into a deck with a lot of poppers, which Bravo is.
Yeah. It is interesting to note. You do see the Mage Masters there. So obviously we might see some shenanigans with Tome of Findel. We might see the passing mirage, like tome to passing and then do
Right.
something else to like make sure it doesn't have a phantasm, like a big dragon or something like that. So we might see stuff like that. Usually the more aggressive Dromai lists do run Snapdragon Scalers for things
That's
like
true.
Snatch and
Yeah.
E-Strike. Uh, that being said, here we do see Thomas kind of leading out the gate. He did go. I think Dromai won the roll and went first. I believe chose to
Yeah.
go first. So we see Thomas kind of bringing in a disable for 7, blue disable. Nothing too threatening. This matchup is very interesting from both sides because it's a bit of a fatigue show because really Bravo has so many poppers in the deck. First, I'd say the second place would probably be Oldham as far as poppers. So yeah, so we see the life totals still fairly even. Zachary is going to start setting up his board state as main kind of win condition. He is balling out with all those Marvel dragons. I can see, of course, as you do in
Yep.
California.
Marvel
So
Ashwing as well. Very nice.
of course, you gotta have the Marvel Ashwing. So I imagine he's probably just gonna poke him for one here. It's gonna be very interesting if Bravo starts popping the little Ashwings, especially with Uvi on board. I think it's probably more efficient to just keep those cards and send back a little bit more damage if you can, depending on what your hand is. And it
Yeah.
looks like Thomas is very, very easily crafting that hand to be a pulverize from hand off the seismic surge. So pitching 9 because of the discount. So pulverize, very good card in any matchup because it's just 14 raw, but like it's 18 effective because you get the -4 on a 4 power, which Dromai does run. I don't know how many Zachary runs in his deck. It seems to be not necessarily as aggressive running the Mage Masters, but you never know. Could have like dust ups and stuff like that.
Right,
But
exactly. Knowing the Dromai player, I'd probably attack with an Ashwing first, maybe poke for one, waste the debuff on the Pulverize, so at least you're not getting full
mhm,
value off of that, and then come in with yeah, Dust Up or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah. The saving grace here is not dominated, but it's in reality giving your entire hand. It really depends on the blocking value of your hand. I do see a Blaze Headlong in Zachary's hand, so obviously it's not just 4/3 blocks, right? So
Yeah.
definitely has some aggressive cards pulling up the Fate Foreseen in front. I think for Dromai, the plan is still going to be to set up a big board state, get a bunch of stack a bunch of Chromais, get some poke damage through with your Ashwings, try to get things like a Passing Mirage out, and try to really gain value off of that. So we see Zach just taking 10 to the face. And the life for Dromai is a bit like Prism in that regard, where you're going to trade your life for board state. And it's
Yeah.
exactly like Prism in that regard. But unfortunately, your board state is not as sticky as Prism because Prism, if you attack the aura, it's got Spectra, right? You're just
Yeah.
forfeiting your turn unless you have an extra action point. But in this
Yeah.
case, there's no such
I
thing.
mean,
So we do
luckily
see Zach.
in the case of Bravo, there isn't that much go again unless you run the Rouse.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to clear up that many dragons every turn, which is
Yep.
in Dromai's favor. But I'm not really sure what the Bravo is running. I don't know if it's more of an aggressive build. It probably
Mhm.
is, given that it is into Dromai. They're probably
Yeah.
running the more aggressive package into Dromai because
That's
you
fair.
want the poppers. You don't want to run too
Mhm.
many D reacts if you can help it. So
Yeah, we saw one of the new cards coming out of Dynasty, the red dust, the one from Vincerikai being played down. So it
mm,
is another material to make sure Vincerikai does
yeah,
not just get immediately popped, right? But we
yep.
do see Bravo coming back with looks like a red choke slam, the yield, two floating, one card in hand, one in arsenal. So
Classic.
I haven't seen. I've seen a lot of conversation about the new Dust and Dynasty. It seems like the only remotely useful one at the moment is this one.
Right.
But having to cost an action point just to play it could stifle your turn a little bit. It does block 3. It is a red, right? So it kind of has those things
There's some
going for it.
synergy
But
with it. Yeah.
exactly, there's some synergy. Chokeslam not immediately impactful to Zachary. I mean, there's not a ton of like maybe E Strike gains power, but as far as other attack axes, can't actually think of anything that straight up gains power. But we do see the
Yeah.
pummel, and that one does have an impact, right? So we're gonna see the red one come over for +4.
Hmm.
It's nice. It's nice when you do a streamed game, so they already put the dice for you. It's not like just
Yeah.
some rando game. They're just like playing, so that you just don't know what's happening, like what color that pummel is, because I'd have no idea what
You're
color that
always
pummel
caught
is. But
calculating values, and seeing the
yeah,
life total doesn't line up exactly what you calculated, so you got to keep going back. So this is a lot better
yeah,
for us, at least, to see exactly what's going on.
yeah. But we do see Zach taking another. It looks like 9, so he's taking 19 over 2
Wow,
turns,
this is a
and
fast-paced game.
I'm not sure if that's what he wanted. He did Crown of Providence to get the 5th card from the arsenal. So
Yeah.
you put the arsenal to the bottom, and he got a card from hand. He's going to trigger the Uvia here to start of turn, get another Ashwing. So he's up to 3 Ashwings, all Marvel, I believe. So the money is
How many
definitely.
more does he have?
Ooh. So we see
Okay.
that he kept his
Commentate.
hand for Tomotai, and definitely white crowned, right, to make sure he has the blue and 2 reds,
Hmm.
because then he could discard a red to the pummel. Now, Tomotai is interesting because he's going to be able to sack that tectonic plating if he does hit 2 reds, which he does. He is a god gamer,
Yep.
and it's just bye bye for that tectonic. I imagine. Yeah, there
That
it
is
goes.
the
Because
the prime target for sure.
yeah, I mean, like at this point, it's 21 to 39. Sniping the null rune seems a little silly because I think Bravo's just going to race you to the face you,
Right.
and
Right.
hit you hard, right? So taking the null and being like, oh, now my burn them all. You can't block the arcane. It's like, well, I'm at 39, so
Yeah.
it's gonna take you a little while here. So
Exactly.
I think that's pretty fair.
You're more better
He
off
was able.
poking with dragons and just coming in for chip
Mm,
damage here and there, because Bravo isn't going to be blocking all that damage, especially on the Ashwings,
mhm,
unless he's looking to to pop one of them. But that's kind of a little more rare, especially if the life
that's
lead
true.
looks this good in Bravo's favor.
Mhm. Yeah, again, it's not as good as it would be in other matchups. Like
Yeah.
as far as like board state, you still do have those Uvia, those dragons. You did this snipe tectonic, which is worth quite a few as far as pitch goes, because
Hmm.
you won't be able to efficiently pitch as well. We do see a choke slam. Is that another pummel? Ooh,
Yeah, very nicely lined up.
I
There
do see a
was
sync
luckily
though,
a sync was in hand, yeah, and
and that's such a Rob thing to do. Just play down the sink when
Just
you got the pummel.
always have sync when a pummel comes through. Yeah. One thing
Those
to
have
note
it.
also is popping the tectonic this early was a really good thing because it removed 3 block from the game.
Hmm.
Because it wasn't used at all to block yet. So it's 3 block plus the 5, effectively 8 damage on the Tomotai attack.
Hmm. To be fair, Zachary didn't do anything yet, so there isn't really much to block there. I mean,
His first
there
attack
was
being
that Blaze.
Tomotai. Yeah.
Yeah, that Blaze Headlong ended up just being pitched for Ash. So we
Hmm.
do see.
Very nice spinal. Um, he
How
did
did he
pitch for
create the
tectonic.
seismic search?
Oh, I think it's
Okay.
a force of habit. I'm sure it's a force of habit,
Okay.
and he just assumed he had it.
Possibly.
I'm hoping they
Okay.
catch that because that's obviously a misplay. Um,
Uh,
although no one's
not
catching
so
it.
much. Not so much a misplay as
I
a legal play, but let's skip by that. It's okay. It's round one Swiss. People are a little bit jittery. I've definitely have seen
I
it before.
I'm hoping it doesn't matter
This is-
too much. Like there's no like perfect pitch curve coming
mhm.
in with this, but
Look, as far as I'm concerned, based on what I saw at the Calling Auckland, these players can make as many mistakes as they want and still be like,
even the best can make mistakes. Even the best get tired, so no shame
okay, but
in
this
that.
this is this is this is round one to be fair, but that's okay.
It's the
We just
jitters of
see
round one. It's not the
it's the
fatigue, it's
jitters
the
of round
jitters.
one.
Yeah.
So we do see another Ashwing being created off Uvia and an Arsenal. So again, 37 to 20, Bravo should just really just be hitting as hard as they can. They won't get too many windows. I really don't think hitting the Uvia would be like good at all. Like they only have one Ash. It looks like Zach's struggling a little bit after that one sweeping blow to get more Ash generation. So I
Right.
really wouldn't worry about the Uvia as Bravo. I'd be like, that's fine, man. I'll just pop your Ashwing pretty much every turn here. But he's
Exactly. And
he's moving his seismic from the left to the right, so nobody's noticed yet here. But that's okay.
oh,
It's all oh there we
he's
go.
yeah,
Oh there we go.
that's pretty funny. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So that
they're
finger,
probably
the
like
judgment
oh
finger just coming across.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Luckily, it didn't matter too much. It didn't. It wasn't for a Nothos anyway, so the spinal would
Mm-hmm.
have come through regardless. So it wasn't like
Mm-hmm.
to turn on a Nothos for 6
Yeah,
damage,
he
right?
just he just would have had one floating. It wouldn't have
Exactly.
been that big of a deal. So it's not it's not that bad. We do see a
And there
rouse
is
from the
Rouse.
ancients.
Yeah, so Rouse coming
He
for
is
face,
paying
I
for it.
believe. Yeah, like you said, targeting Uvia here isn't that great because there's only currently, I believe, one Ash, and you don't really want to be using your last Ash to create an Ashwing when you might have a
Yeah,
potential dragon in hand. So I
yeah.
think what's going to happen is Zachary's going to decline the Uvia trigger for the foreseeable future unless he can guarantee
Mhm.
pitching red for some more Ash.
No, that's totally fair. So we do see a full block with the Fate in the block, the 3 block, and we do see a Nothos. So he
Yeah,
did reveal Zealous Belting, right, to get to the 13 with Cranial.
right.
So 8 plus 5 is 13. So the math has not been
It's
affected by the Seismic Surge being
exactly enough.
off the table.
Mm-hmm,
Yep,
mm-hmm.
exactly enough. And this Nothos will be
Yep.
6. So you see that dust from, I think it's dust from the Red Desert. Don't quote me on that. I'm like kind of,
I'll
and
take
it's
your
like
word
dust from the
for it
Shadow
because I
Crypt.
think I've looked at that card like a few times in my life.
Yeah, I think it's Red Desert. So we do see a 3 block. So we'll be taking 3 here because 6 minus 3 is 3. Math is good. So we do see that Zealous Belting
Okay, there's the
uh,
Blaze.
being put into the arsenal. And I really do like the play from Thomas, making sure you always have a relevant threat in the arsenal, which you always should be considering as Bravo to make sure you have threat after threat, because
Yeah.
some of Bravo's hands are just like straight up dead. It's very common to have one of those like utility blue hands where you're just kind of like 3 random blue guardian attacks that don't do much other than block or
Yeah.
just pitch for Nothos.
I mean,
But
the
without
good thing would be that you can pitch for Nothos, but now without Tectonic Plating, that option is pretty much dead. You don't really want to
yeah,
be pitching a single. Well, yeah, I mean, you can pitch a single blue
you
card
can
for
pitch for
4,
Bravo.
which is fine. You can pitch
Yeah,
for Bravo. That's true too.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Bravo
So if you
only
have two,
affects
if
crush
you have
cards, so it wouldn't really gain dominate.
it would not, but you can at least pitch for the 6. So you can make it a 6 by pitching, one
I
blue
see
for
what you mean.
Bravo and then
Okay,
another
yeah,
blue.
yeah,
Yeah. So it'll still be 6. So we do see the
that's
Crown
fair.
of Providence, a little bit of hand filtering. We knew, Thomas probably wouldn't do anything with that Zealous Belting, juicy Zealous Belting that can be
Mm-hmm.
pummeled.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So Thomas is kind of doing what I would recommend definitely in this position. You have full tempo here, and we do see 2 reds coming out for 2 reds.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no floating pitch here. So CNC and something else
yeah.
for the Zealous Belting coming in for 5 go again.
I can see a second Zealous in hand, as
Mhm.
well as it
Another
might
blue, I
be. It might
assume.
be a blue. So I'm
Mhm.
assuming it's gonna be pitched for a Nothos here, which will be very nice just for 6. Oh,
Terra
it was
Sunder.
Terra
Yep.
Sunder. Okay, yeah. So a very good turn.
Yeah.
It's a shame there aren't more dragons to clean up with this kind of hand because this is like the hand you want when you're clearing up some big dragon threats. But with the
Mhm,
health lead the way it is, I think ignoring Uvia is the right play. And
mhm.
you know, knowing that you have poppers anyway, you can add a at the snap of a finger turn off the Dromai's turn if you want to. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty comfortable as Bravo.
Yeah, he just took another 3 from Nothos. So Zachary's playing this not for it's interesting that he has the Mage Masters, but he's kind of playing for the short game, it looks
Yeah,
like now.
yeah. I
But
mean, it's true that the deck should be running snaps if you want to be more aggressive. But the deck is kind of just going full
I mean,
gas.
you don't really run Uvia when you're running an aggro and Dromai build
That's a good
anyways,
point.
right?
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
I think he had a plan and Bravo just kind of drew the natty pulverize and it kind of went downhill from there, which is fair. Like there are these cards that kind of you need to be flexible and shift up your game plan. And some decks are just built a little bit too much to one edge or the other. And if you've built, it's kind of like that Tree Frog Dash, right? You build this deck to build Oldham, and then you have to play not Oldham, and then you have to be like,
Yeah,
well, I can only do what I can do, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
do see CNC a little bit more impactful now the crown is gone, but Bravo is a
That's
bunch
true.
of 3 blocks. Honestly, could probably just like that's another Zealous belting in there, right? So if you don't
Yeah.
need it,
I
you
think
could
this
just
is
like tank it.
you could. There's a staunch in hand too, which is a bit unfortunate into a CNC.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but like you said, Bravo is no stranger to 3 blocks. I think 2 3 blocks will be more than enough to take care of this.
Mm-hmm.
Dromai doesn't typically run the pummels. I don't think I've ever seen a Dromai run pummels unless you sneak in like one sneaky, cheeky pummel.
Never say never.
Never say never.
Never
Yeah,
say
I've
never.
seen you run pummels in Dory. So after that, I believe in anything.
Look, man. Look, man. Pursuit of knowledge is a great card. Hell of a drug, as they say.
Yep.
And when you pummel it and hit, you feel like a god. So
Yeah.
that's what you do. So we do see a block for 6.
Yeah.
Like just 2 random blues, Thunderquake, and I don't believe I know the one below. So
Yeah.
if he does have that staunch, that hammer will be coming in for 4 after the zealous instead of 6. I don't. The staunch might just be like required in his list just to get to that blue count. I don't. I would side
Yeah.
staunch out in this matchup in like every single regard. But if he needs it for his last blue or whatever, then it's fine, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's been my struggle with siding with Bravo is that you have a very strict number of blues in the deck, and even into decks that you don't really want to run the staunch into, you'd still include it just to have the blue.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I totally understand. That's probably got to be the reason here. And it
Mm,
is a very flexible card into a lot of other matchups, especially the aggro matchups,
yeah,
because it just comes in as a one a two for 8, as far as like 2
right.
cards for
Two,
8
you
block.
pitch for 6, come in for 8. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. It was
Very good
a
against like
buckling.
Dory too. Oh, it was a buckling, so it's still coming in for the 11, which is really good. It's like you really want to be, ride or die on these like zealous and rouse turns, which
Yeah,
Thomas has
I
able
mean,
to like hit pretty
11
consistently.
damage per turn is not nothing when you're looking at 10 health left. It's lethal every turn, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
making
just
it
a,
very
it's
hard
a
for Dromai to keep their hand.
Yeah, it's a 3 card hand too. Like you pitch for Rouse and you pitch again for
Right.
Nothos. It's just a 3 card hand, which is pretty reasonable as far as you're starting with some kind of arsenal here. So we do see that dust up. This is not Phantasm, so you can't just pop
Pop
it,
it.
as they say. But
Yeah.
I think 10 to 31, you're gonna need a pretty big stall at a Bravo. Like I think as Bravo, you just take everything and try to dominate to win. Because at 10, you just
Right.
need a couple dominates. I think the one saving grace is like Zachary still has Furnace up, so there is 2 block there,
Yeah.
at least. And then if he wants to break it completely, he gets 1 more block off of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed. Yeah,
it is
and
a it,
I was gonna mention that Zachary did play a lot of D-reacts already. Unfortunately, they were
hmm,
from hand, but they weren't stopping Crush or anything, so it didn't really matter. But Bravo, knowing that, would say that this would be a good time to push the gas.
all right. Now, when everyone sees a 3 card hand and the man just pitches for a Nothos, this is what's going to happen. He's either going to bluff it or he's going to have another pitch for that pummel that he's going to play right now. And boom,
Yeah.
wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. It's a 10 if it's a red, or it's an 8 if it's a blue,
Yeah.
because the Nothos always checks. Ladies
Exactly.
and gentlemen, this is why you always be scared of those kinds of plays, because
Yeah.
they just come in a left field. And
Essentially
it's
pummel for 6 at this point.
it is not something you want to bluff off 3 cards in this position. I think in this position he has it, and you probably just give him 2 cards if you can, and just be like, okay, well I'll take 4 off the pummel. We do see a Rake the
Yeah,
Embers
that's pretty nice.
coming
Now,
up.
the good thing also about that is there was no discard effect on the pummel because it was applied to a
Mhm.
weapon. So, but I mean, you're at 10 health, so your health is probably more important than keeping a card in your hand.
The discard health is death, Rob. The
Yeah,
discard effect is death.
yeah.
So we do see
So,
that Chromai finally popping out. I think it's a little too late because you just pop this and then pop your next dragon. I imagine he takes the Chromai, so he's gonna have the 2 action
yeah, so
points.
this is a lot of damage actually if you're going to take, I believe that is 7 Ashwings. Are they all
Mm,
Marvel? Oh my goodness. I think that is
I'm telling
7
you,
Marvel Ashwings.
once you go California, you don't go
You
back.
don't go
And
back.
so
Yeah.
we have a bunch of dragons attacking, and so it looks like Thomas is just gonna
Just
take it.
blow up the screen right there.
It looks like he took
Oh
too many
my goodness.
dragons. He took too many dragons, folks. It seems to be
The screen can only
breaking the
handle
stream
6
here.
dragons. We now know what the critical mass of dragons are for a stream. All
Right.
right,
So
we're
we do see like one pop essentially, like one popper. So I mean Thomas still has the three cards in hand. So 7 Ashwings, I believe.
yeah, yeah. We do see the
Looks like
Chromai was popped most likely. Unless he
yeah.
swung a Nothos into it, we did miss a little bit because of the glitch. But I think the Chromai did go through initially, and I believe all the Ashwings went through to put him down to 21 health. And then
Hmm.
on his own turn, he might have just attacked the Chromai, which is my
He might have not
best
just
guess.
had not had the popper or not had multiple poppers, so it might have
Yeah.
just been a keep a card back, draw, and then do something along those lines. We do
Hmm.
see that enough poppers for this turn. We're just going to be disabling here for 7, I believe.
Yeah.
So blue disable needs to do 4 or more to get that crush effect off. Block for 9.
Including an E strike. It's
That's interesting. So I think I
yeah,
would have just probably okay. So you see passing mirage. So let's
okay,
let's pause right here for a sec. Let's
yeah,
give a little bit of analysis to that one. So
hmm,
it looks like it was an E strike and 2 other cards. So 2 other cards aren't relevant because E strike doesn't care what other card there, right? So you block with 3 cards, took nothing on a 7, and your other option was essentially block with 2 3 blocks, take 1 damage, and E strike back for X amount. What ended up happening is I don't know what the Arsenal card is either, so whether that
right,
would have done anything or not. But assuming that that's negligible here,
now,
you're essentially you're preventing. Now you're at 6, like that's fair. But like you're going down to 5 to present 7. Like you're taking 1 to do 7, or you're taking nothing to get passing Mirage out. I think at this stage of the game, I think it's a little bit more critical to get some more damage across. Just
hmm,
essentially at the cost of 1 health. Yes, you're at 5. The other side is if you're really worried about dominates,
yeah,
which might be the case here. Like the pummels and the dominates are a lot more, um, you're a lot more wary about that kind of thing. But I
yeah,
think like from a value perspective, maybe if it was from any other point of the game, or you're trying to trade a little bit more aggressively, you probably block for 6 and then you strike back for 7. Possibly you just E strike with go again and just swing with all your dragons might probably be the best idea. If you were
right.
running snaps, obviously you
7,
snaps
or
that E
maybe
strike.
even
Yeah,
draw a card, could go again.
I would draw, depending on what the arsenal is. I would consider drawing the card because you can easily draw another Blaze Headlong for 4 go
Right.
again, or something along those lines. But I think you just essentially you block for 6, take the 1, you strike for 5, go again, hit them with your 7 Ashwings, and if they're taking everything, they've taken 12 damage and you've taken 1, and they're at 8 and you're at 5. And like, yeah, they might have a dominate, but like, let's say you have especially if you have a D react. I think if he has a D react in the arsenal right here, and you have the furnace, you definitely take the 1. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is, obviously, but
The only
and
thing
then
that
even if
would
he pops it,
probably kill you would be a crippling crush dominated, because you can block with furnace. Although I think it's been used already. I might have missed when it was used, but you have some
yeah,
armor to block. And then crippling
true,
crush dominated 11. You block for 3 armor. That's 4. Include a D react
sure,
from Arsenal. I think you're looking okay. But
sure. The other
I
factor here
yeah, go
is
ahead.
like you're taking a card from their hand, right? Like when you're attacking with the Ashwings, they're either taking another 7 or they lose a card, and if they're only on 3 cards, they can't dominate anything that's worth 9 or more, right? Because they have no seismic up, so they can't like spinal
Hmm.
dominate it or anything like that.
Yeah.
So the best they can do is like, I don't know what, cranial cross. Cranial cross
It's
6.
6. Yeah, so you can
It's 6
pitch
for
3
8.
cards. So it's not a 3-card hand that you can get dominated from.
Yeah, literally mangle. But I don't think he runs mangles. But mangle costs 4, I believe. So mangle for 4, and then
Yeah.
Bravo for 2. So 2 blues for a dominated 8. Even then, you'd be at 5. You just block with a card
Yeah.
and armor, and you're still alive. And then you're coming back with the kitchen sink here, and they're at like 8. So
Yeah.
I think in most regards, you probably just E-strike go again. Like that's so much value for 1 health. So I think for anyone watching, those are your other options if you do so choose to consider them. So we can get the game
Yeah. And one point I just wanted to bring
back on
across
rolling.
was that I don't know if Dromai has to be really that gassy right now because the board state's looking kind of good. I think that if
Mhm.
Dromai just wants to set up a passing Mirage and not take any damage, that's a win in their books because they're progressing their
Mhm.
board state and they're not taking damage for it. Whereas Bravo is probably going to be taking these Ashwings anyway. So I think that
Mhm.
if you kind of give the Bravo, like, if you can stay safe for 2 or 3 more turns, you'll catch up pretty easily.
Yeah.
And that might be what's
Yeah.
going on inside his mind.
Which is fair. Yeah, the dominates are a little bit scary because you give Bravo 4 cards, you could dominate everything,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly. You don't really want to give them an
it's
opening when you're sitting okay at 6, and you know
mm,
that you're gonna win if you just keep the board state and keep your health total the way it is.
true. So we're gonna see a command and conquer. That's a good one to have. You see, he could have possibly got
Yeah.
that out of his hand if he wanted to pop it.
I
But we
think I
do
see a
see
pummel. Is that a pummel in his hand?
it looks like he pitched a pummel and then he's just like, I don't have another pummel,
Yeah,
man.
these are the blue
Don't you worry
pummels.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, they must. Yeah, pitched a blue
because
pummel.
he played all 3 red pummels, I believe. 2 on the what were they called? The one that you
Mhm.
can't gain attack on your attack actions, choke slams.
Yeah,
2 on choke slams and then 1 on the Anothos. So
true.
Dromai kind of being privy to to a pummel coming through, blocking for 9, knowing that all
Mhm.
3 pummels were played, meaning that you only have blues left. So a 9
Yeah,
block is gonna be pretty safe.
yeah, which is totally fair. 9 block on that, and that's kind of what I led to before. Like if you take that 5, now you're in a really good position, right?
Hmm.
Because you'd be at sorry, if you went down to 5 and
If
took
you
that
went down
extra
to
one,
5, yeah,
because if they don't dominate, you block for 3 cards, get a red 0 cost, and attack with the kitchen sink, right? But getting that passing mirage is nice because you get your first dragon without phantasm. However, if they're still
yeah.
at 20,
Oh, there's
what
the
was a
blaze.
blaze
So
headlong?
it was an S. All right,
I definitely would have e-strike
E
there. I
strikes.
mean, I
Yeah,
totally I understand it, but he goes to 4 if he takes everything. Like
yeah.
that's
No, knowing that
that's a
that
lot
was
of
a
value.
blaze headlong, I think that would have been 5 plus 4 plus 7 plus the Uvia. You're looking at, is that 18 damage?
If Yeah, you don't even
Something
have
like
to
that.
attack with Uvia if you for some reason don't want to. But yeah, the Uvia has another 8 damage. Your
Yeah.
Thomas is here. He's counting all the dragons here. So he's
Okay.
taking everything.
So like that, we're equalized. So yeah,
Like you
it would have been
wouldn't have
5 to
this option,
6.
right?
That's true. I think Bravo
Yeah,
would have been at like probably 2 health
would
at
be
this
dead.
point. Or yeah,
Would have been dead.
right. Oh, the strike plus, of course. Yeah, he'd be dead.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we do see the Bravo crippling. This is
Oh,
kind of what we were worried about.
yeah. This was the
And
one thing that could end the game here. Now this is 11 damage dominated, which means that you need to block for 6 total to survive. You have Furnace for 1, and that's it.
can you can you block for 6 here?
I don't know if you can. You would
Not with dominate. You would need Oasis.
Oasis and um what is that? That's a 3. That's 4.
That's 4 on 11.
He has Oasis in hand, so he's okay.
Oh, he must have
He
Oasis.
has
Okay.
Oasis. Yeah, yeah, very
Yeah,
lucky
he does have
Oasis.
Oasis. Yep. Yep. Very timely.
Whew. Yeah.
And because it's literally Oasis because he has no Ash for sand cover.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And there's no way he's running unmovable in this deck, so that it wouldn't have been enough just to have a 4 block 0 cost to react.
Mhm. Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
So he's blocking 4, 3, 1. So he's
It should be
taking
8, I believe, taking
3.
3, just narrowly avoiding crush too.
Yep. No, that's what Oasis Respite does, But he has 1 card here. If it's a red 0 for 4, he can play it. He has no Ash left. Yeah, he has no Ash left. So yeah, and he has nothing to pitch because he has no Furnace. Well, you need 2 cards because you need to play a red to activate the Furnace. But he's just
Right.
going to
So this is just a
be
vanilla
not
Asvolai, I think. No go again on this.
no Phantasm though.
True.
Yeah, he's gonna be just blocking for 3.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I think
Oh,
he didn't realize it
probably
wasn't
realized there's no
pauper. Yeah,
phantasm.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they realized there's no
Because
phantasm on
when
that,
you
but
when you
it's
when you
only
block
3.
in when you block an attack position, oh my goodness,
Hmm.
it's kind of like the aggressive pauper stance. Okay, so I think the arcane damage from Asvali went through, and the physical as
Now the
well.
physical.
So now
Yep.
we're at
Yeah.
3 each.
Yeah. So he dominates anything and pretty much wins here, right? Because there's no armor on board. Unless you need a D
Yeah.
react. He's probably saying if you don't have a D react, you lose, right?
If
So you
um
dominate.
if Zachary had a 0 for 4 like a Blaze Headlong, it would have been game because you can't block all those Ash Wings at 6 health. We are
Mm,
seeing the Bravo dominated into a second crippling crush.
no, it's
That
sober.
has got to be the game. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
fist bump.
There's a
All right.
Vincerikai in
Yeah.
the
So noting that Vincerikai never came out, even though the sand was there or the special ash was
yep.
there. So a little rough.
Yep.
I don't think it mattered too much because it was played early in the early parts of the game when Dromai was still setting up their board state. So it
Mm,
wasn't that big of a detriment to have it out. It's just unfortunate that the Vincerikai came out so late
Vincerikai.
because it would have
Yeah.
been a very big help early on. 3 arcane damage, unblockable, really, only with only the Mage Master, the arcane boots.
Yeah. Yep. No, I think it's it's an interesting play with the Mage Masters. You're able to like pitch if you have enough pitch, right? You can pitch for Mage Masters, get the dust down, and then pitch again for Vincerikai. Get the Vincerikai on the Ash, and then be able to attack with it for that 6,
Mm.
essentially without any chance to pop it or any chance to hit it. Right? It's not like you're playing it you're playing the material next turn, and then blah blah blah
Yeah,
blah, and then you have to
it's
pitch
9
again for
damage, so
Vincerikai.
it's just as good as a Spinal Crush without the crush effect. Mixed damage 9.
Assuming no block, yeah, but yeah, it's pretty good. So this one went over to Thomas.
Yep.
Thomas on Bravo, just playing correct. Like I don't think there was too much other
Yep.
than like creating a seismic surge for
Yeah,
that tectonic. Let's not do that in the future though.
he he correctly avoided the Uvia or avoided killing the Uvia. I think that would have been a 6 damage swing that could have mattered a lot more when Dromai was keeping the Easter egg, maybe, right? So I think that
Hmm.
putting the Dromai that low and avoiding the Uvia was the correct play, knowing that the
Yeah,
Ash was low. It was getting close though because 7 Ash Wings is not really anything to laugh at, especially if
I would laugh at it
you just laugh at
and then dominate and just dominate,
just dominate an Ashwing. Just activate
dominate
Bravo,
over the
crippling crush,
Ashwing.
and Ashwing. Yeah. So anyway, I think everything was played really well. I wouldn't have played Bravo any differently. I think. Not that I'm good at Bravo, but I'm sure you'd agree that the Bravo played pretty well.
Yeah, you just had the hands. Like he had the Rouse, he had the Zealous, he stacked the Zealous. Well, stacked the Zealous. He had the Zealous, drew another Zealous arsenal. So he always had like reasonable threats. He had a couple blue disables, but that's kind of all he had
Mm.
in the hand. I think the E-Strike play really was the misplay of the game.
Mm.
Like if you take a damage, because it's passing Mirage is fine if that's really if that's what your plan is early. Maybe you're sticking to it. That's fine, but to prevent 1 damage from going through
Yeah.
and over blocking like like CNC is different in
Yeah.
my opinion. But for like a blue disable, taking the 1 and then you have the Blaze. So as we kind of talked about, 5 go
Right.
again. Blaze Headlong for 9, and then add another 7, and minimum you take a card. And Thomas's hand was double blue pummel, crippling crush, CNC, meaning if you take one of those cards, like let's say you take CNC as the popper, right, to prevent that damage, then crippling crush you can't afford it. Crippling crush
Yeah.
costs a magical.
Now 3
Uh,
cards, I guess, because there's no seismic surges anymore. Magical
Exactly. Like
7.
crippling crush costs, yeah, it costs 7. So you need the seismic. I blanked on the cost for a minute there. So you're
Yeah.
really kind of like you either pitch for CNC and then you have 1 floating in a pummel, and you can't use it makes your turn really bad. So you're like, oh, you're forcing them to be greedy, right? If they want to be greedy and take 7 and come back and you just block with 3 cards and come back, you win the game. Because then Thomas couldn't have done that thing next turn where he just takes a bunch of damage and dominates to win.
Right.
So
Yeah.
regardless of Oasis or not. So I think that probably was a little bit overprotective, but I totally understand
Yeah.
why it was done. But
And
that's probably
you're
like the main takeaway.
Yeah, I think you're right. Giving up, I guess up to 18 damage for the 1 passing Mirage seems a bit crazy, a little bit, in hindsight at
We,
least.
we talk about all of this in hindsight. I don't blame anything
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
player.
In the
Round one of the
moment, I would
tournament
have
here.
done the same thing. I think looking at just kind of me accumulating these little dragons, and it's like, I know that next turn I can catch
You
up
gotta
in life totals, protect
my
the
kids.
brood. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah,
All
can't
right.
blame anyone for making that play, but in hindsight, it probably would have saved the game.
That's why we do this kind of stuff. And so with that, if you like this kind of content, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. We are going to be starting a more we're going to pick up the draft content going forward with Outsiders. So we are very excited to get back into more draft content and ripping our teeth into this new set. And with that, from wherever you're watching in the world, have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Bye for now.